We're going to begin the funeral service for Mrs. Liz Bakall. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome everybody via live stream. Thank you for attending on behalf of the family. Services will be conducted by Rabbi Toby Manowith.
I've known the Bakall family for over 50 years, and when Karen and Bradley and I were talking earlier this week, I couldn't say that it's my pleasure to be here today, because it's not my pleasure to be here today, but certainly it's my honor to be here today and to, be with Karen and Brad and their children and their spouses as our parents and our families spent so many times over the years, both in joy and mourning together. The very first thing that I'm going to do is something that you won't hear. I'm going to walk over to Brad and Karen. You might have seen that they're wearing black ribbons. Many, many years ago, it was the tradition that when someone heard about a death, they rent their clothes. Just out of grief and sadness, they ripped what they were wearing and they would wear it for the next 7 days. In modern society, if we walked around with ripped clothes, people would wonder what was the matter with us. So what we do is we take a ribbon and we tear that, and Brad and Karen, you're welcome to wear it for the next 7 days, just as a marker to other people that you're mourning and that they should, at the very least, take care around you. So Brad, if you could come closer to Karen. Older brothers, right?
Big help.
It's traditional at this time to share the words of some psalms. Psalms cover the whole litany of emotions in the Hebrew Bible. I thought I'd share this first one by singing, because music was a part of Liz's life. In English, the words are, "I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? Esain el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esain el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai. Ose shamayim v'aretz, Ezri me'im Adonai. Ose shamayim v'aretz. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. We'll continue with the 23rd Psalm, which is in your service booklet. The Lord is my shepherd, please join, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Right now is the time to speak. I'm going to invite Karen forward to say a few words about her beloved mom.
I might need that. Welcome. My brother, Brad, and I and our family would like to thank everyone for being here today with us, both in person and via live stream, wherever you might be. You are lifting up our family by your presence and helping us celebrate the life of our mom. Our mom, Elissa Marilyn Greenfield Bakall, had many roles in her lifetime: a daughter, a sister, a friend, teacher, mentor, wife, a mother herself, and a grandmother, just to name a few. How would I describe my mom? She was independent, intelligent, strong-willed, feisty, adventurous for the times, meticulous, and the big one, straightforward. This one caused her a few problems. I'm going to touch on that later. She was also kind, inquisitive, loving, compassionate, and caring towards so many. Our mom was born in Chicago, Illinois, to Arnold and Jean Greenfield on December 22nd, 1936. And we just celebrated her 88th birthday just a few weeks ago. She grew up in Logan Square neighborhood, attended Darwin Elementary and Roosevelt High School. In 1953, while just starting her junior year in high school, at the age of 16, her 47-year-old mother passed away from an illness. This loss was defining. It was a defining experience for our mom and her sister Shelley, who was only 12 at the time. Mom was put in charge of running the household, planning meals, shopping, cleaning, and caring for her younger sister and her father. Thrust into an adult role at a very early age, managing her own grief and loss propelled her into becoming a steadfast, hardworking woman. Where others may have faltered, our mom grew stronger, organized, managing her studies and the household. I think this is where she learned her ability to rule the roost, as the saying goes. Upon graduating high school, as many of her friends were getting married, our mom wanted more. She wanted to pursue a college education. Despite her father's resistance, she worked her way through college. She paid for it herself those first 3 years at Roosevelt University, and the last year, she took herself down to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. After graduation, her adventurous side took her to Europe, where she traveled with a girlfriend for over a month. Upon return, she went on to get a master's degree in education at Roosevelt in Chicago University. And it was during that time that she was introduced to our dad, Norman Bakall, who would become her husband and life partner. Now, something you should know, our mom was born a Greenfield. They were not a quiet bunch. On the contrary, as my dad once put it, they were loud, chaos, and it was a complete ruckus at those family get-togethers. My father's parents, however, were quiet, Eastern European, demure. Then along comes straightforward, not-so-quiet Liz. Not certain what they thought of her initially, but she eventually settled into a wonderful relationship with her in-laws throughout many years. I do recall an interesting statement my dad said. He actually never asked our mom to marry him. She told him, "It's time to tell your parents we're getting married." Straight talking Liz, at it again. Our parents, they were blessed with 55 years of marriage. Our mom pursued teaching at the 5th grade level, later taking a position with the Chicago Board of Education in research and evaluation, and her career spanned over 35 years in education in the Chicagoland area. So what was it like growing up in the Bakall household? Our dad, he was the softie. If you need anything, go to him. But Mom, she was the disciplinarian. As my brother Brad said the other day, you were spot on. You had better mind your manners, watch your P's and Q's, or watch out. We had family dinners together every night. Politics, current events, and of course all things Chicago Board of Education were often discussed. Our mom was a pretty good cook for the basic staples, but often she went awry with experimental dishes. So those backup peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they came in handy. Mentoring others. In the latter part of her career, she was a mentor to many pursuing education. Letters and notes she saved from colleagues express gratitude for her wisdom, her clarity, and guidance on furthering their own careers. Organization. Oh my God, was Liz organized. Crazy organized. I guess being a bit OCD benefits the household. All canned good labels face forward. Every office supply or household item had a holder, a bin, and then a cover. Everything needed to be tucked away into the cabinets, the drawers, and the closets. And as a former school teacher, she seemed to have a plethora of school supplies in the house, even post-retirement. Should you ever need a paper clip, a pair of scissors, or a number 2 pencil, she had them. She could supply the whole apartment building. Mom was a saver. I had no idea until recently. As I've been staying in her apartment for the last year and a half, after she moved into an assisted living community, I found what I call gems. Cards, notes, letters, photos, things of all kinds. So many cards and notes that said, "Liz, Thank you for your friendship, your caring nature. She saved those special cards from birthdays and anniversaries as keepsakes. And as you can see, Mom loved pictures. She loved taking pictures throughout her life. She made many albums. She tried to capture all the time she got together with friends and family, and she did look back on them. What a treasure trove of memories we have. And this one blows me away. She loved flower bouquets, and here they are. And of course, she loved taking pictures with them, loving the burst of color they provided. With retirement brought more travel and more travel experiences for her. She enjoyed trips throughout the country to visit friends and family in Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, to name a few. She loved to cruise with our dad and explore new places. They spent 10 years as snowbirds in Florida, escaping the Chicago winters. Many of the pictures here around the room show them enjoying friends, warmth, and fun, and her very, very big smile. Our mom stayed connected to people. She loved writing letters to family, to friends, to former colleagues. Later, that transferred to emailing. She used AOL, and she loved seeing, "You've got mail." She maintained friendships with so many, spanning her entire lifetime. After our dad passed away, Mom was determined to stay independent in her apartment in Winston Towers, despite her mobility challenges. Brad and Sophie, you lived nearby, and you were a tremendous help and support during all those years, and many others. Brad and Matt, doing all the odd jobs that needed handling. All four of you, Samantha, and you guys heading out with Mom to Chinatown and Elwood's, taking her out to dinner. You shared so many holidays together. And bringing over delicious food that you made, Sophie, accompanied with the watermelon and the soup she loved. One of her greatest joys, her 5 grandchildren, Samantha, Matthew, Daniel, Jacob, gotta find you all, Nathan. She loved hearing all about your adventures. She loved being with you and visiting. You brought her great joy, even though she lived afar from some of you, or your pursuits took you off to see and do new things. She always asked about you and took great pride in seeing you develop into the wonderful young adults that you are. Michael, she loved you dearly. She was never a fan of New York infrastructure. This was brought up earlier today. Your first conversation with my mother was about the New York City infrastructure. Who would have thought? This happened when I brought you home for the first time to meet my parents. And she was never a fan of the fact that you whisked me off to New York City to live. But she respected you, and she appreciated you, and she loved you and the connection you shared all these years. To use the words a friend just shared with me on social media, our mom was a woman of valor, with a few hiccups along the way, I will add. She is what you say was unfiltered. I had one too, Rick. Her straightforward words oftentimes got her into a hot mess with friends and family. As you know, we are not perfect beings. And our mom, she was very human. So to conclude, we will miss our mom dearly. Her big smile, sharing her favorite Chinese dinner with her, watching her zip around the Jewel grocery store in a riding scooter like a pro NASCAR raceway driver. Hearing her say to me, I'm going to have a tough one with this one, Carrie Sue, and sharing our lives and our thoughts and just being together. On a very personal note, she meant the world to me. She gave me a sense of self, strength, confidence, and independence. In Hebrew, I want to say, Ima Elecha HaShalom, which means, may peace be upon you. May peace be upon you, Mom. I love you. Amen.
I met Liz Bakall when I was 5 years old. Her son, Bradley, and I were in the same kindergarten class at Decatur School on Chicago's far north side. My mother was active in the PTA, and soon Liz was as well. My father served on the JCC board, and Liz did too. Her characteristic attention to detail landed her a role as board secretary. Liz was part of the fabric of the neighborhood. Living just a block away, she and her beloved Norm were frequent visitors on our front porch and in our backyard. Liz would stop by after Friday night dinner, sometimes with Karen, sometimes alone, to have dessert and share a cigarette with my mom. There's a framed photo of one of those evenings in my parents' home. Liz is wearing her signature grin. There were a few through lines in Liz's life. Education was one of them. I think she would be pleased to know that Darwin, her alma mater, is a part of a CPS program called The Leader in Me, a framework for student success based on the 7 habits of highly effective people. Karen shared that Liz graduated from Roosevelt High School. What she didn't share is that when she was going through some of her mom's yearbooks, a piece of paper fell out. On it was the senior song, which noted Liz as one of the co-authors. It wasn't uncommon for women of the era to get a degree in education. But upon graduation, most pursued a Mrs., not a master's. This wasn't the only time Liz pursued post-secondary education. Nearly 30 years later, when Karen was in college, Liz went back to school in service of her career. During those years, she often could be found in her basement office, poring over books, and of course, taking meticulous notes. Her professional life, as Karen said, started as a 5th grade teacher at Devonshire Elementary in Skokie, where she made lifelong friends. She took some time off in 1966, starting in 1966 and continuing through 1968, when Bradley and Karen were born. She made her way back to education as a substitute teacher. During those years, Chicago public school teachers went on strike 3 times, in 1971, 1973, and 1975. I don't remember exactly which year it was, but Liz was part of a group of parents who had education degrees and set up an alternative school for the neighborhood kids at a local synagogue. They weren't going to allow a strike to stop their children from learning. She organized, taught, and may have even brought out her guitar to keep us quiet during what passed as recess. Later, she applied to and was awarded a job as a program evaluator for reading recovery through the Chicago Board of Education, as Karen shared. She traveled to schools all over the city, her smile a welcome momentary respite for teachers whose students often required so much of them. Though not many would say that anything about the Chicago Board of Education is perfect, this was the perfect job for Liz. It combined her ease with numbers and data with her love of seeing students succeed. She also used her mothering skills she honed early on to mentor young teachers, providing them with support, guidance, and direction, which they speak of to this day. She was the lead author of a nearly 70-page report on Chicago's reading improvement plan in the early 1990s and had contributory credits on many other papers. Family was another through line in Liz's life. Of course, Karen mentioned that she and Norm were married for 55 years. Together, aside from traveling, they went to the theater, the opera, and classical music performances. Her children and her grandchildren, as Karen said, brought her joy. She, of course, supported their education, but really supported them in everything they did. She joined the PTA and the JCC because if Brad and Karen were going to be involved, she was going to do her part to make sure that those organizations were the best they could be. Brad remembered that she was the loudest parent in the stadium when he played in Little League and Pony League. She would scream and cheer. It didn't matter if he struck out or made it on base, she was still the loudest parent. As a young family, the Bakalls would travel to Wisconsin and rent a cabin. Later, they would join a group of families Liz met through the PTA for a yearly weekend at Camp Shy in the Wisconsin Dells. Liz's nature led her to a desire to program the weekend with a schedule of activities for both the parents and the children. Luckily for some of us, the other parents declined her offer. One year, decades before the advent of cell phones, the Bakalls were uncharacteristically late to camp. They had found themselves on the road behind 2 police cars for many miles, and with a healthy appreciation of rules, they didn't dare think of trying to pass them. I also remember from those times that every so often the men would and the kids would have a pickup game of something, usually softball, and while all the rest of the women sat around with wine in their hands, Liz, who had somewhat of a sporting nature, would come to the field and participate. Liz spent time with each of her 5 grandchildren. She was fortunate that Samantha and Matthew lived next door during much of their growing up years. The kids would spend time with her after school, and later in life, as Karen said, Matthew and Bradley would fix things and do odd jobs that grandmothers rely on their children and grandchildren to do when they no longer can. She loved spending holidays together and hearing about the grandchildren's educations. When Daniel, Jacob, and Nathan would come to visit, Karen remembers Liz interacting with their trains and trucks and Lego creations. Most of all, she loved to give them hugs. Well, squeezes, really. She just loved pouring her love all over them. The family is thankful that over the last months, when Liz lacked the physical strength, many of them were able to return the squeezes that she offered so generously to all. Liz had one other love affair worth a small mention. Buffy the dog came to the Bakall family through a work connection of my father. Liz was devoted to that tiny white poodle, and Buffy was just as devoted to Liz. She tolerated living in the same space as the rest of the family, but snarled and nipped at them, only showing affection for Liz. She might not have squeezed Buffy with the same strength reserved for her human loves, but Liz picked that dog up and beamed. She cried for days when Buffy died. Liz loved egg foo young, first at Pekin House and then at Cow Cow. She loved the chocolate cake my grandmother would bring from an Evanston bakery on Friday nights. She loved playing guitar with a group of friends. She even brought a ukulele back from a trip to Hawaii and strummed on that. She loved to read and was a lifelong learner. She made friends in every era of her life. She was not a storyteller like Norm, but she was a terrific audience. She loved to laugh. The Torah portion that we read this week tells us about Jacob's last days. We read that he's ill and that his eyesight is failing him. As he struggles, he blesses all of the children and some of his grandchildren. Some of these blessings are wonderful. He lets one child know that they'll live by the sea, another that they'll always be secure, and yet another, that their life will bring them fortune. Some of the blessings are not as kind. Throughout her life, Elissa Greenfield Bakall gave blessings to those around her. Sometimes it was easy to see the blessings in her words and actions, the care she provided to her younger sister, the support she offered to her children, the mentoring of other educators, the lifelong correspondence with friends. Sometimes her words didn't seem like blessings. It was not always easy to be on the receiving end of her directness, but not many people paid attention to details like Liz, noting everything about you and letting you know because she wanted you to be the best you that you could possibly be, even if she had a different opinion about what that was or how to get there. Through love of family and friends, through a career dedicated to education, through her cheerleading and support, and through noticing all the parts of each person she met, Liz Bakall gave us all blessings, and now her memory will be a blessing to us all. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we'll remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we'll remember her. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we'll remember her. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we'll remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we'll remember her. When we're weary and in need of strength, we'll remember her. When we're lost and sick at heart, we'll remember her. When we have joys we want to share, we'll remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. I invite you all to take a moment for your own private remembrances. God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft and on a lonely way. But you are the living foundation from which our healing flows. To you, the stricken look for comfort, and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see love endures and the soul endures, as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is a dwelling place of your love and glory. I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashrina, Him Kiroshim Uteorim, Ki Zor Harakia Mazirim, at Nishmat Elissa Marilyn Greenfield Bakall Shalchach Lolamam, Bal Harachamim Yasireh Beseter Kanfav Lolamim, Vayitzror Bitzror Hachayim et Nishmata, Adonai hu nachlata, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Liz Bakall, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. I invite the family to remain standing and the rest of you to be seated. The family recited Kaddish when they were at the burial this morning, but asked that we recite it again in the presence of community. The words of the Kaddish are in Aramaic and transliteration on the back of your service sheet, but even if you're not familiar with the words, you'll hear many times that we say Amen. I invite you, when we say Amen, to follow after us. One of the most important things you can do today, beyond being here, which we know is incredibly helpful to the family, but in saying Amen, you say, we're not just here for you today. We're going to continue to be here for you next week, next month, and any time that you want to share about your mother, your mother-in-law, your grandmother. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. B'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam olamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha brichu. Le'elan min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We say, may God give comfort to all who mourn and to those who grieve here today and throughout the world, as together we all say one more time, Amen. You can be seated.
This does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family would like to invite everyone to come right over across the lobby for their Shiva that begins now until 4 p.m., right across the lobby in the other room. So I know the family just sat, but we're going to ask if they please rise. We'll escort them over first, and then we'll have the friends follow the family. Thank you so much.